Alrighty, so I asked Nathan to share a little bit of information about some research he did, and this was a really good conversation I saw on our Discord channel when Nathan and I believe it was Knight or Rick was going back and forth about how they were using basic URL and let's get that right basic use basic parsing I believe, and how they ran into different behavior depending on what operating system they were on. So Nathan, if you could jump in and sort of repeat some of the highlights of that conversation. And the part I was really interested in, first, you guys didn't really know why you were observing these strange behaviors in these different operating systems, but then you did a little more digging, and then you sort of found information on why you observed the kind of behavior that you did.
Yeah, so preface this with I had no idea that that use basic parsing was a thing. I think until was it Joe, I think, mentioned it. Or because let's see, who was it? I think it was Knight maybe that was mentioning or referencing it, and then someone asked about it later. So I had no idea it was a thing, and I believe Joe had mentioned that the use basic parsing was to stop PowerShell basically from having that dependency on Internet Explorer, because I guess in the back end, invoke web request, which is normally used to grab or pull, basically like you can just create web requests from PowerShell. It would actually use Internet Explorer on the back end to handle some of those requests, and that I didn't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. Doing some research though, you can use basic parsing to stop it from doing that, to use its own parsing and own like user agent, and then anything I think is like PowerShell 6 and up just does that automatically. So PowerShell, anything less than PowerShell 6 will make use of Internet Explorer, and anything above that doesn't make use of Internet Explorer. But in me trying to like hunt down specifically, like I wanted to see it use PowerShell or use Internet Explorer, I was messing with Internet Explorer COM Objects, which is kind of like a just in Windows, everything's an object pretty much. And so you can represent the Internet Explorer kind of like the program. I believe I'm explaining this right. I could be wrong here, so if someone corrects me, that'd be great too. But it's like the object representing the executable basically, and you can use it to do different functions almost, because while everything's an object, that means everything has like methods and functions that you can also call from those libraries within PowerShell or within Windows. And so for this, like you can call and you can have it go make requests on your behalf. And that is what happens kind of in the back end for the PowerShell. So every time I would try to tell Internet Explorer to like go make me a request, give me back the information from it, it kind of like got axed by Edge. It like would start up and then kill itself, and then Edge would pop up. And so I thought that was really interesting. But the gist was just the fact that I guess in some update, I don't know when, Internet Explorer got a plugin installed into it where it would actually, if it deemed a URL not suitable for Internet Explorer, it would kill itself and then go open up Edge instead, and then you would have this nice Chromium-based browser to view your website in. But I thought that was interesting because it just seemed like it completely subverted it, and I wasn't sure how exactly it still pulled back the headers and everything correctly, still pulled back the content into PowerShell correctly. So I thought that was interesting, and I wasn't able to exactly track down how that transaction exactly worked, but I'd imagine it probably did some funky black magic in the back and was able to just basically say, hey, go look at this guy instead. He's got what you need. And so that was kind of my assumption. I didn't dig too much further in that regard, but that was kind of the gist of what at least my research had gone to, because I was also wanting to go eat for dinner. So
So the reason I asked Nathan to share this is that this technique that him and Rick were talking about, that is one of the more modern advanced red teaming techniques. And the way it kind of works is that the really amazing researcher in our communities, they sort of figure out these new techniques and then they kind of share it with the community, right? Through conferences, through GitHub, social media, websites, right? And then we can then benefit and then we end up using it. But more often than not, we don't really understand all the nuts and bolts of how it really works. So I know of, the many really good red teamers, they will just cut and paste and use this. I've done this many times myself, but right, use basic parsing. But how does that work really? And as Nathan was mentioning, in these different environments, in these different versions of PowerShell, right, you'll experience those different behaviors. And because we don't know how it really works, we just kind of shrug our shoulders and like, I guess it doesn't work in this environment. Why? We have no idea. Like a lot of this underlining technology, it's sort of black magic. So for me, basically what Nathan did there, it was like really kind of advanced exploration of how these functionings actually work and interacts with so many different parts, right? So, he mentioned COM objects. It's like, okay, how many of us know what COM objects are, right? And then, okay, first is PowerShell. And for some people who aren't familiar with doing pen testing and red teaming in Windows environment, right? They would have to know, okay, what is PowerShell and how do you use it? And also about different versions of these web objects, right? Before Internet Explorer, now Edge. And for those who really know sort of the evolution of Edge, right? Previously, I think it had its own different engine that it was using. And then, but eventually, I think in the last couple of years, they migrated into the Chromium engine, right? So, just knowing those details are really important in terms of what kind of techniques and what are the ramifications of those techniques as Nathan was sharing. So a lot of this was new to me. And when Nathan's explaining some of that stuff like COM objects, I kind of have to like look it up myself because I haven't had the time to explore those kind of things. So that just goes to show you about how our relationships with tools. And I was really fortunate in terms of they had that conversation, so I was able to like learn that. Otherwise, I would have been none the wiser. And so yeah, so I think that's just really amazing conversation in the Discord. And please continue having them because we're going to be able to learn so much from each other. So that's what I had for that's what I wanted Nathan to share there. And unless there's any other comments or questions about that, we can move on our agenda.